Book VII, Chapter 8. In the meantime, Glyndon, after an audience of some length with C, in which the final preparations were arranged, sanguine of safety and foreseeing no obstacle to escape, bent his way back to Felidae. Suddenly, in the midst of his cheerful thoughts, he fancied he heard a voice too well and too terribly recognized, hissing in his ear.
What? Thou wouldst defy and escape me. Thou wouldst go back to virtue and content. It is in vain. It is too late. No, I will not haunt thee. Human footsteps, no less inexorable, dog thee now. Me thou shalt not see again till in the dungeon at midnight before thy doom. Behold!
And Glyndon, mechanically turning his head, saw close behind him the stealthy figure of a man whom he had observed before, but with little heed, pass and repass him, as he quitted the house of Citizen C. Instantly and instinctively he knew that he was watched, that he was pursued. The street he was in was obscure and deserted, for the day was oppressively sultry, and it was the hour when few were abroad, either on business or pleasure. Bold as he was, an icy chill shot through his heart. He knew too well the tremendous system that then reigned in Paris not to be aware of his danger. As the sight of the first plague boil to the victim of the pestilence was the first sight of the shadowy spy to that of the revolution. The watch, the arrest, the trial, the guillotine. These made the regular and rapid steps of the monster that the anarchists called law. He breathed hard. He heard distinctly the loud beating of his heart, and so he paused, still and motionless, gazing upon the shadow that halted also behind him. Presently, the absence of all allies to the spy, the solitude of the streets, reanimated his courage. He made a step towards his pursuer, who retreated as he advanced. "Citizen, thou followest me," he said. "Thy business." "Surely," answered the man, with a deprecating smile. "The streets are broad enough for both. Thou art not so bad a republican as to arrogate all Paris to thyself." "Go on first, then. I make way for thee." The man bowed, doffed his hat politely, and passed forward. The next moment Glyndon plunged into a winding lane, and fled fast through a labyrinth of streets, passages, and alleys. By degrees he composed himself, and, looking behind, imagined that he had baffled the pursuer. He then, by a circuitous route, bent his way once more to his home. As he emerged into one of the broader streets, a passenger, wrapped in a mantle, brushing so quickly by him that he did not observe his countenance, whispered, "Clarence Glyndon, you are dogged. Follow me." And the stranger walked quickly before him. Clarence turned, and sickened once more to see at his heels, with the same servile smile on his face, the pursuer he fancied he had escaped. He forgot the injunction of the stranger to follow him, and perceiving a crowd gathered close at hand, round a caricature shop, dived amidst them, and, gaining another street, altered the direction he had before taken, and, after a long and breathless course, gained, without once more seeing the spy, a distant quartier of the city. Here, indeed, all seemed so serene and fair that his artist eye, even in that imminent hour, rested with pleasure on the scene. It was a comparatively broad space, formed by one of the noble quays. The Seine flowed majestically along, with boats and craft resting on its surface. The sun gilt 1,000 spires and domes, and gleamed on the white palaces of a fallen chivalry. Here, fatigued and panting, he paused an instant, and a cooler air from the river fanned his brow. "A while, at least, I am safe here," he murmured, and as he spoke, some 30 paces behind him, he beheld the spy. He stood rooted to the spot. Wearied and spent as he was, escape seemed no longer possible. The river on one side, no bridge at hand, and a long row of mansions closing up the other. As he halted, he heard laughter and obscene songs from a house a little in his rear, between himself and the spy. It was a café fearfully known in that quarter. Hither often resorted the black troops of Henriot, the minions and huissiers of Robespierre. The spy, then, had hunted the victim within the jaws of the hounds. The man slowly advanced, and, pausing before the open window of the café, put his head through the aperture, as to address and summon forth its armed inmates. At that very instant, and while the spy's head was thus turned from him, standing in the half-open gateway of the house immediately before him, he perceived the stranger who had warned. The figure, scarcely distinguishable through the mantle that wrapped it, motioned him to enter. He sprang noiselessly through the friendly opening. The door closed. Breathlessly, he followed the stranger up a flight of broad stairs and through a suite of empty rooms, until, having gained a small cabinet, his conductor doffed the large hat and the long mantle that had hitherto concealed his shape and features, and Glyndon beheld Zanoni.